before we get into a lot of the questions, I'd like if you could just to help all the viewers understand Back from Heaven's Front Porch. There's the tagline on the header, I thought, personally anyways, was such a huge draw, where you said, at 3:55 p.m. on July 28th, I believe there was a heaven. Right. At 4:15, I knew.
Yeah.
You know, that is such a powerful heading. If you can just give us an overview of the book, and then I've obviously, as you can see, I've got quite a few questions about the book, because these principles that you talk about in the book are just remarkable, and I'd like to go through all of them with you, as well as some different key areas in the book.
Sure. Well, you know, the background of the book is based on a real-life experience that I had, and it was July 28th, 1992, and a friend and I were lowering a ladder, and we mistakenly hit an electric line that caused electricity to come down the ladder and surge into both of us. And both of us were killed, and, you know, I came back. You know, my friend didn't. It was pretty tragic. He passed that day, but that tagline that you speak about is the accident happened at about 3:55. And when I got hit with the electricity, I was really pretty calm. I knew what was happening. I knew I was crossing over. It was you know, like unlike anything I'd ever experienced. It was very peaceful. And I was watching some of the happenings on the ground there, and I was yelling to another guy that was coming down the ladder. You know, he heard the commotion and was coming down to assist. And I was just pulled away to a very dark, deep, loving, kind of soulful place. I wasn't in my body anymore. I was very conscious in whatever way I was conscious then. You know, my soul, that I was kind of joining with God. And this God and I had a conversation, but it wasn't words. It was just a communication that, you know, we can't even fathom here. You know, sometimes you can read people's thoughts kind of like that, but it was that at a much greater degree. So when I had this conversation with God, I said, you know, and again, I'm not using words, but I expressed concern for my mom and for my girlfriend at the time, who's my wife now. You know, what about my mom and what about Lisa? And as soon as that happened, I was right back in my physical body. And I came to, and I crawled over, and I crawled over to assist with, you know, my buddy who passed that day, and his brother who was helping. And, you know, then the paramedics came, and they got everything kind of squared away, and they pushed us away, and, you know, said, we got this. And I remember I was sitting against a fence and my feet hurt. So I looked down, and my boots had small holes in them, and then I took the boots off and my socks had holes in them. And then I took the socks off and my feet had holes in them. And the one friend of mine came over and he said, what happened? And we just kind of started to chat. And I said, didn't you hear me yelling to you? As he was coming down the ladder, I was yelling to him to go to the other guy. And he said, you didn't say anything. So that was probably about 4:15. You know, I was not of this world for, he estimates, maybe 4 minutes, 6 minutes. You know, I had no sense of time where I was. But at about 4:15, as I kind of, everything started to, I don't want to say settle down, but as I started to really think about what just had happened, you know, I realized that I had crossed over and then come back. So that's the premise for the book.
Okay. In the book, the main character is Jake. Now, at the end of the book, we realize that this journey is a little bit of the journey that you personally took, and we've had this conversation about it. Jake finds out about a principle called Jackrabbit. Can you share a little bit about the Jackrabbit Principle, and then I'd like to dive into all the 5 aspects of it.
Sure, great. So yeah, Dan, what you speak about, Jackrabbit, for me is really the philosophy. You know, we all have a philosophy for life, which is based on our beliefs that have come through our experience and our interactions with others, you know, and just our journey in this life. So I call mine Jackrabbit, JCKRBBT for short. And it's got 5 parts to it, or 5 principles that make up that philosophy. And in the middle, we'll drill into each one, but in the middle, kind of the main one for me is develop vision. And then it's got a little double-sided arrow, and then create reality. So it's one principle that you need to apply, a belief. That for me, I say, you know, I'm much happier and much more fulfilled in life when I'm always developing a vision and moving to create it to reality, taking the action. I just had a conversation with my son this morning. You know, we get a clear vision, and then I asked, is what you're going to do today, the actions that you're going to take, are they moving you towards that vision or away from it, or just neutral? You know, so that's kind of the equation in there in the middle of that principle. The reason I called it Jackrabbit is because when I started to put this together back in, oh gosh, I don't know, 19 or 2005, I guess, 2004. I'd worked through it in my mind, and then I went to a coaching school in Santa Barbara, the Hudson Institute, and we had to put together kind of your belief. How would you coach people? We all have our different models. So when I wanted to name this, I went out looking on the internet, and vision is really, really important to me, and we'll talk about that. So I just did a search for animals, and it turned up this one article I remember, and it said that the jackrabbit of all the animals has really good vision because its eyes are far back on its head and very high up. So it can see above itself, in front, sideways, behind, essentially 360 degrees. So I thought to myself, that has a really strong awareness of its environment. And that, for me, is what's really important for all of us as individuals, to have a good, strong awareness of our environment. And then I have 4 other principles, as well, that just continue to feed into that vision and support ourselves. None of them are first, none are more important. If I had my favorite, I would say it's vision. I think vision can give us direction. It can get us through a lot of the challenges. You talk about the 3 feet from gold story. The gold is really the vision. So that's what keeps us working through that, through the perseverance.